Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 1:01, so we'll go ahead and get started. We would like to welcome everyone to our first Financial Fortitude community event. And this event is building a financial house. And much like the physical houses that we live in, we must build our financial houses from the ground up. Before we get started, I just want to share the goal of our Financial Fortitude series of events. Financial Fortitude is designed to help participants increase wealth and decrease debt. And what better way to do that than by building and focusing on the foundation first. So on today, we are excited to present this webinar, and our presenter for this event is Carol Emmanuel. And Carol Emmanuel is actually the Economic Development co-chair of the Warner Robins Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta. And just a little bit about Carol before we get started. She currently works on Robins Air Force Base, and she has served over 20 years part-time in finance. So she is well equipped to lead this discussion. Just a few house rules. If you will, make sure that your phones are muted. Also, if you have questions, we will gladly answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. We ask that you either hold them to the end or type them in the chat as you are thinking of them. Okay, so if you're ready, we ask that you grab your tools and let's build this financial house. Soror Emmanuel?
Yes. Hi, Sorors and guests. I welcome you to our presentation on building a financial house. What we want to do is really just teach you the concepts of setting up a plan that will help you exist and stay financially solvent in this type of environment, especially here now in the pandemic. It becomes even more important to work towards building that security. So the first part of that financial house is building income protection. I'm sorry, my screen is 3 screens up.
Encouraging all at the same time.
Is everyone seeing the financial house?
Soror Emmanuel?
Yes.
I thought you asked me to control it.
I did, I'm sorry. Can you go back a screen, please? Then I'm sorry. You know how we engineers are. Thank you, sir. So the topic is build a financial house, and then we've actually got a financial house layout. So you can see how to build it from the ground up, as Soror mentioned. And so next screen, please. So we have a financial house that is, well, the foundation of the financial house is income protection. It's not shown on my screen, sorry, is it shown on your screen? And we apologize, we're having a little difficulty.
So are you seeing this screen that says, why are people having so many financial challenges?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the second slide.
And the one before that, did you see the house? Okay, great. So I just want to focus on that for a minute. Thank you all. I appreciate your time. So the foundation of the house is the income protection. And we're going to talk about each one of these individually. But income protection is what protects your income, that money you're making every day when you're going out to work, because that's what funds all the other layers of the home. The second layer is the emergency fund. And during this pandemic, of course, we've seen the importance of that, because you need money when just things crop up unexpectedly. Third, retirement savings is very important, because no one's going to pay for you to get off of your job and be able to live the way you want to, except you. So you're the one in charge of making sure that whatever time frame that you want to stop working, to be able to live and enjoy life, vacation, buy a new house, whatever you want to do, you're in charge of that. Fourthly, there's debt elimination. In order to achieve the other things, if you're mired deep in debt, you really won't be able to get to your toys in the attic and some of the other goals that you have. So debt weighs you down and it keeps you from accomplishing some of the goals that you have. So getting rid of debt is very important. Fifth floor is if you have children or even nieces or nephews that you want to help save money to go to college for, there are different sorts of college savings plans available that even relatives can contribute to. And then the attic is the things that you desire, like cars or boat or just, dream vacation. Those are kind of things you can save for and you can achieve. But, you need to build your house solidly to be able to get to that at some point. Next slide, please. So the first part is income protection. And what that really means is life insurance. That's the purpose of life insurance. Because in the early years, especially if you have a family, you'll need more coverage, most likely, to protect that income, because your kids are younger. Typically, you have more debt. You've got the mortgage, you're still paying off other bills. And if a breadwinner dies, that would be devastating to that household. And like I say, you don't have much money. But then as you move on, the kids grow up, they go to college, or at least, get out of the house, hopefully. Then when you want to retire, you really need money. But in order to have money, you would have had to have saved money over time. So, and then hopefully also your debts should be lower. And over this time period, which typically is about 30 years, you probably would have paid off your mortgage or at least refinance it for a lower interest rate. But at this point, if you're thinking about leaving work, that's when you need retirement income. And that's what we call the theory of decreasing responsibility. Because in the early years, if you die too soon, you don't have any money, your family's in debt, and everything is bad. But on the other side of that coin, if you live too long and you don't have money, you won't be able to retire. And then you'll just be working until your 70s, 80s, 90s, which you may not have wanted to do, but may be forced into. So that's why we want to develop a solid financial game plan as early as you can. Next slide, please. So with life insurance, and that's what we call the income protection, there are two types. The two main types. Cash value has several types, as you see. There's cash value life insurance, which has subsidiaries whole life, universal life, variable life. And then there's term. And really, cash value is term insurance with a mutual fund or cash component that grows income for you. So you have insurance and cash value that are tied together. Term insurance is just insurance, life insurance for a certain period of time. You can buy it in different 10, 15, 20 year or more. And that just covers you. If you die, your family gets some amount of life insurance. The main difference is that cash value has a investment type or savings account type feature attached to it. Buy term and invest the difference allows you to get a term policy and set up your own investments in the investment vehicles that you choose, and you manage those yourself, which actually could be more economical for you. Next slide, please. So the second floor of your house after income protection is setting up an emergency fund. And we see the importance of this, especially now with this pandemic going on, unexpected events that come up. Because a lot of people have lost their jobs with this pandemic. And so you're seeing people scramble, not being able to pay their rent. Through no fault of their own necessarily because of the pandemic, but you still need to have some emergency fund, at least 3 months to 6 months of expenses set aside. And that is money that you want to put into an account, like a savings account in a bank or money market. This is not something you want necessarily in a mutual fund, because this money needs to be steady, easily accessible, without any penalties for taking it out. So also you wouldn't really want to put this in like a long-term CD, because if you have to take that money out early, you'll pay a fee. Next slide, please. So when we think about retirement, I know we all dream about retirement. I mean, I know I do. I'm sure you all do too. So think about, how much money do I need for retirement? And that's what I would call our financial independence number. And everyone's is different. We don't all have the same goals for when we retire, where we want to live. Some of us may want to live in a big house or move to California or even out of the country. I know some that likes to do that. Or we just want to stay at the house we're in and just, live simply. So all that's up to you. But what you do need to figure out is, what will it take for you to achieve that for the length of time that you think you'll be in retirement. So we call that the financial independence number. And, that's something, there's some software or a financial advisor could help you once you've determined when you want to retire based on how you are now, to help you figure out how much money that you need. In this example, somebody want to retire in 30 years with $30,000 a year, which is $2,500 a month. So their financial independence number turned out to be just over $1 million, investing $585 a month at a 9% rate of return to reach that goal. So the point of this is, think about this for your life and where you are and how much money you think you want to have when you're ready to retire. And then you have to work backwards to see how to get there. Next slide, please. So one of the great rules of figuring out about interest that I love is called the rule of 72. And it's an easy way for you to figure out how long it takes your money to double just based on interest rate alone. So what happens is, you take the interest rate that you're getting on your money, say like at the local bank. If you're earning 3% on your money and you put $10,000 in there, you divide 3 into 72, that goes 24 times. So that means it would take 24 years for that 10,000 to double into 20,000 just through interest alone. So you move that up to 12% rate of return. 12 goes into 72 6 times. So now your money is doubling every 6 years. So you see on the chart now, from 10,000 that you started with, in 6 years, you've got 20,000. And now in that, probably most of us, I'd say, at least have maybe 24 or 30 years, say 30 years, now you'd have $320,000. Or an example, you can see at 3% in 24 years, they've got 20, but at 12% in 24 years, it's 160. So that's a big difference, isn't it? So that's why we have to consider the rate of return we're getting for our investments based on the type of investment it is, whether it's for retirement or if it's for emergency funds. Because you have to invest a little differently, like I say, for the security purposes of what those are built for, which has to take into account long-term investing versus somewhat for short-term emergency and savings. And I hope that makes sense. Next slide, please. So one of the investment vehicles for long-term investing is mutual funds. I know we're all familiar with that because I think we are bombarded some of the commercials, even on television now and on the radio. But mutual funds are, you have individual investors giving their money to a professional money manager inside of an account, a mutual fund. And most of us have 401ks at work, or possibly in our IRA, that have different investment options that can have mutual funds and some other investment options. But it's professionally managed money by a money manager. And then they take the money that we give, us, all sorts of investors, pool the money to the professional money manager, and then they go out and buy stock or bonds in different companies. Like they could have some money in Procter & Gamble, Walt Disney, pharmaceuticals, just a large array of different types of companies can exist in one mutual fund. Technology. And in fact, the typical mutual fund holds more than 150 stocks. So that means, while some industries may be going up, others may be going down, but it gives you an opportunity to have a good rate of return, based on the mutual funds, because they are so usually somewhat diverse into different types of holdings. Next slide, please. So the great thing about mutual funds is, one, they're professionally managed. Two, that I just spoke of, the diversification of assets gives you some risk averseness to having just all in one sector, and that sector plummets. So diversification is your friend. Thirdly, there's the growth potential, which exists really in all the mutual funds, and affordability, because it's easy. You can buy just a few shares. You can open up a mutual fund for most of the time for $25 a month, which is awesome. And liquidity. Unless you're in a retirement, if you're just in a regular mutual fund for savings or even IRA, you can still get your money. You may have some penalties, but they're typically, other than that, very liquid, that you can take your money in and out, especially for emergency fund type usage. But the note is that mutual funds are not guaranteed against the loss. Just because you have your money invested and it's invested typically, like I said, an array of different types of companies, it's not guaranteed against the loss. But you can see when you look back at the mutual funds records, they do have a good rate of return typically. But like all assets, they have some costs and fees. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So mutual funds earn money 3 ways. Companies inside the mutual fund typically will have what they call dividends, that are distribution of earnings from said company. And since a mutual fund can consist of anywhere to 30 or 100 more companies, those companies could actually have earnings that go into your mutual fund. And then you have capital gains. Capital gains are the profit that results when they have a sale of a capital asset, and that sale price, exceeds the price that they purchased that for. So like you purchase a share of mutual fund for $30, and then by the time you sell it, it's worth $60, which is one of these, like Netflix. Netflix has gone up quite a bit, especially now with the pandemic. So if you had some stock in Netflix, you've seen quite an increase in that share price. And that was on the news. Capital appreciation is just the increase in value over time of the value of an asset without selling, but it just shows that your value has gone up, which is what you want, because that's what helps you have more money for retirement. Next slide, please. And then there's also individual stocks and bonds, which my nephew himself, he's 18. He's already invested. He and some of his friends, they invested in some stocks. So a stock is a security that represents the ownership of a corporation in a fractional way. So you'll have a fraction of ownership of a corporation. And so this entitles you to that much of the stock of the company. And it's usually a small part still. They're called shares, and they're sold on stock exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange. Whereas a bond is a debt security that's used to raise money for the issuer or the company, like a government. In fact, I know those of us that work for the government, we have or have had in our 401k a government savings bonds that you could buy as part of your retirement. With bonds, the issuer promises you to pay you back a specific rate of return on those bonds, and principal when it comes due after a set period of time. They usually have a certain period of time that bonds, and you get an interest rate at 6 years or 10 years or something like that. But they're very secure because it's a set interest rate for whatever time period. Next slide, please. So the fourth part of the house, the fourth floor, is debt elimination. Because once you've got your income protection in place, you're building an emergency fund. And these aren't, you have to do everything one after the other. You're going to really be doing these things kind of at the same time, especially these first 3 to 4 floors. You're going to be working on your emergency fund. You're going to get your income protection in place, working on your emergency fund, starting your retirement plan, because you can always add more contributions to your retirement plan. But you want to get it started. And then the fourth floor is debt elimination. So one way to eliminate debt is to, the first one is restructure your debt with a debt consolidation loan. Loans have gone down in interest rates, so this could be a good time to do a debt consolidation loan. Or you can do it yourself without going through the loan process by adding extra funds, and that's what we call debt stacking. Paying off your lowest balance debt first, and you pay the minimum on the others until you've paid off that lowest balance debt, and then you move on to the next, and you take the money that you were paying on the low balance, add that to the minimum payment on the next balance, on your next debt, and that way you're paying more on that than you were previously. And with that, you'll just keep rolling that forward until you pay off all your debts. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Pay off all your debts. But you can do that, and that's what we call the debt stacking plan. You just focus on one at a time, typically the one with the lowest, because that gives you a good feeling when you pay it off the debt. And you can take that momentum and build it to pay off the rest of your debt, credit cards or even a car payment. And as you get that achievement rolling, it just gives you more incentive to go on and keep doing it. And also it gives you incentive to maybe stop spending as much so you can have more to go towards your debt plan until you get out of debt. Does that make sense? Okay, next slide, please. So investing for college, that's the fifth floor of our financial house. That's for our kids, our, sons and daughters, our nieces and nephews, people that we want to support going to college. And there's several vehicles for saving for college other than just, a regular savings account. There are 529 plans that are used for college and also for kindergarten through all the way up through high school. The account owner maintains ownership of that until the money is withdrawn. And typically you can contribute up to $300,000. And the great thing is the benefits include there's no income tax on the earnings and withdrawals. Typically, now we have to check per state. So I advise you to get with your financial advisor to make sure for your particular state, if you're not here from Georgia. But typically you can contribute up to $300,000 in those plans. Then there's an education IRA. I remember we set one up for my nephew. Parents or college students and grandparents can open those up for a particular child. And then there's the education savings account, which is also, you can save $2,000 per year per child. But the thing with those, and it's also called a cover deal, you can, the person has to use it by age 30. And there's also one more thing. There is a uniform transfer to minors, uniform gift to minors. These are custodial accounts for, usually set up like by either the parent or the grandparent again, until a particular child reaches 21. And the good thing about that is that those can actually be transferred. If you have another child in the family and the first one doesn't use it, you can transfer that to a second child that's in that age range. If the one decides, they don't want to go to school or something like that, heaven forbid. But there are options. So these are just some options other than just your regular savings account that are more tax advantage for saving for college for the kids. And we all know, especially now, that college is important, and we need to, we want to, give our kids the best advantage that they have to grow and get that education so they can get out into the world. Next slide, please. So once you've built up all the floors, you've got your income protection in place, you got your emergency fund, you started saving for retirement, and you're getting on track with that, or at least building up to that. You're working on your debt plan or have that done. And then you got your college savings plan. At some point, not right away, but as you get closer to the end of having those first, especially those first 3 floors, income protection, emergency fund, and retirement, locked in place, and you can see that you're reaching your goals. And then also debts. It's hard to finally get rid of debt, but as long as you're paying it off and you're trying not to add more debt unnecessarily, then you'll be able to get to the 6th floor, which is the fun part, which is the toys in the attic. And that's like fun trips, say to Italy or somewhere, and a nice little Jaguar convertible or something if you dreamed of, or whatever you dream of as your toys in the attic. That's what you're working towards. Or it could just be a happy retirement. But if you build it right from the ground floor up, then whatever will make you happy towards the end. I myself love the Jaguar. That's why I picked that. That's my dream car. And so, but picture what you want at the end of this cycle of building your house, and keep that in mind, to help you stay on track with your financial game plan and building your financial house. So I hope this was helpful for you all. And, I thank you all for coming and listening to us. I'm the co-chair of the Economic Committee, and we just thank you, and we just want to share some information that will hopefully, help you with your building your financial house and getting things in order.
Thank you, Soror Emmanuel. We would like to take an opportunity to answer any questions if there are any. You can either type them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your questions.
I have a question about the ESA Education Fund.
Yes.
Okay, so you say you have until age 30 to use it?
Right.
So if they haven't used it by age 30, then what do you do?
And that's the part you have to really talk with your, because you, I think, well, I don't want to speak because I'm not sure exactly what happens at that point. So you want to get with your financial advisor if you have had one that's not used.
Okay.
So I don't want to give you the wrong advice about something like that related with taxes. Taxes is not my part. But it is a good account. But I know it's supposed to be used by age 30. I think after that you may have to pay taxes, but I would check with your financial advisor for that just to be sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions?
Yes, we have some questions in the chat. I will read them. The first question is, which is better, a 529 plan or an IRA?
Well, the 520, and you mean for your college savings for that person, I suppose? Because 529 is for college. So you can put more money in the 529 plan than you can the IRA. So in that respect, I'd say the 529 because you have better options for.
And yes, that's correct. College. It's for college.
Mm-hmm. So the 529, you can put more money in. The IRA is like $2,000. They're both that and the ESA are about $2,000 a year, whereas you can put more in the 529.
There's another question. If I purchase stock for my son now, will I be able to transfer the stock to him when he turns 18?
Yes, you would be able to do that because you own the stock. So, you can give your stock to whomever. So that'd be great.
And many of the brokerages, they have what's called custodial accounts that you can create for your children before they reach that age, and be sure to check with the terms of the broker. For most of them is age 18, but when they reach that age limit, you can transfer that account to that child.
Oh, right. Good point. Because we talk about, I'm sorry. Because 18 or possibly 21 for some states, but yeah, they have to be of age to have ownership. But you can definitely be saving for them in the meantime while they're younger. And that's a good thing to do.
Next question. Are there resources that you can recommend to begin looking for a financial advisor?
Yes, and one of the things I was going to mention some books by like Dave Ramsey, if you're familiar with him. He's out of Tennessee. He's got that show, The Money Game. It's on the radio. And then Susie Orman has some good materials. And other than that, I would speak, if you can look, there's some at the banks, and then there are some other financial resources here. I actually work with a financial services company locally here. So there are several around that you can look up and see.
Okay, next question regarding Social Security. Should you take it at 62 or 65?
Well, the longer you can wait to take it, the better off you are, because the higher your payout will be. But it just depends on, but then we talked about this in our retirement class. You take it, and then after that, you could only get it for a few years, if you unfortunately pass away. So that's just something, I guess, really based on the amount of money you get by waiting to take that into account, and how long you think you'll be living after 62 or 65. I hope that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, also when considering Social Security, you want to be mindful at age 62. I think there's a reduction, maybe as much as 30%. And of course, the longer you work, the more that you will get in return. So financially, you want to make sure that you have enough money coming in every month to be able to supplement your life expenses. So I would advise you to take a look at your Social Security statement just to make sure you are on track to either take the Social Security at age 62 or age 65.
Right, good point.
I can share a little bit about this. I did some research earlier when I was trying to decide, and that if you started getting it at age 62, you're going to get less. If you wait until you're at 65 or 66, then I was going to get more. But by age 70, it would all balance out anyway. So if you live to 70, it don't matter. You no longer benefited from early or late, because when I did it on a scale, by the time I got to 70, it all balanced out. So the extra money that I would have been getting waiting until 66 balanced out with the smaller amount if I had been getting the smaller amount starting at age 62. So it's still, we don't know how long we're going to live, but if you live to 70, it don't make no difference which way you did it.
Right, and that is the key. You don't know, so
right.
Trying to wait until too long, you may never get it if you pass away. So that is something that you just have to think about and decide when you want to use it and start using it. Thank you for that input too.
Next question. The next question comes from a graduate student who currently works for the Department of Public Health. They are also paying off student loans, helping parents when needed, and trying to save money while building credit. Should the focus be on one aspect of a time, credit, eliminating debt, and savings? What are your recommendations?
So you're a grad student, so most likely you're younger. And bless your heart, that's great that you're helping your parents when you need. You're a good child. So I would recommend trying to build some credit. Nothing extraordinary. Maybe one credit card, or you may already have a loan or something that you're paying off. Just make sure that whatever sort of credit device that you do have, just pay it on time. You don't have to get into several credit cards or anything like that, but just whatever you do with credit to pay it on time, that'll help you build a good credit record. And that makes that's a good tool to have whenever you do need, or whenever you need to buy something else, to have a high credit score. And then you may not be able to limit your debt at this point in your life, especially, being in school. But again, just make sure to try to have some money set aside, at least $1,000 for savings. You may not be able to save a lot at this point in your life, but try to have a minimum of $1,000, work towards that. You don't have to do it right away, but incrementally, as you put money into your savings account or money market fund, however you want, something that's easily accessible for you in case you need it. But you want to build up to $1,000, and at the same time, then you can still focus on reducing your debt. And then as your finances increase, then you want to start putting more in your emergency fund and adding more towards your debt payoffs. I hope that makes sense.
Carol, I may have missed the answer to this, but what happens to the 529 plan if your child doesn't need it? they end up getting scholarships or what have you. So what happens to the funds that's in the plan?
And I actually meant to go back and look that up, but I think if nobody uses it, that the money goes back, but with taxes, and you can get it back out. But I can check on that, and we can put that out. So on the WRAC page, and I apologize for that.
Hey, Sorors, Emmanuel and Wheeler. So what actually happens if like the child doesn't use the 529 funds, you can actually transfer that over to another beneficiary. And if not, then you can withdraw it, but it's usually like you have to pay taxes on that money, and then there's a 10% penalty on the earnings from the withdrawal.
Thank you. Yeah, because I know everyone doesn't always have a second, another child if the one who doesn't want to go to college.
Right, but it can be like your cousins or parents, aunts, uncles, but it has to be another eligible family member of the original beneficiary.
Thank you, sorry. I'm sorry, but thank you.
No problem.
That was a good question.
And there's also a comment in the chat in response to the question about should the focus be on credit, eliminating debt, or saving money one at a time. And that comment is that there are 0% APR credit cards that can be helpful in paying down debt. And also, I will add that if I see the goal is to save money, considering what we pay down on debt, much of the debt that we pay down, it has incurred and is incurring interest. And so as a way to offset and help leverage that interest that's occurring, it's important that we try to find investment methods that will grow our fund at substantially higher rates. For instance, we may consider stock market investing is very popular right now. And when I say popular, in the sense that we have some stocks on the stock market that have grown just this year alone 100, 200, 300, 400%. And Zoom is an example of one of those stocks. So investments will be a great opportunity to supplement simultaneously while you are eliminating debt, saving money, and paying down the credit cards.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Right. Yeah, we still want to invest even while you're doing these other steps. They're not mutually exclusive. You just may not be able to invest as much as you want to in all of your retirement and savings, but definitely invest. And again, like I mentioned earlier, Netflix has gone up quite a bit as well over these last few months. Not that I'm pushing Netflix, but that's just one that's been out in the news as far as of how its stock price has gone up. But thank you, Soror.
What other questions do you have before we wrap up?
Do you have any recommendations for a way to get a high interest rate on savings? Is there like some kind of special account that you could name off that the person could look into?
Well, the only thing I can think of is you have some more money and you can lock it away. There's still CDs. If you're talking about less risky type investments that you can hold.
Yeah, less risk.
So those usually the more you can put away, then the higher the interest rate. I mean, it wouldn't be high, but it'd be more than your savings account at your bank.
And I personally have Robbins Federal. If there's anyone that banks with Robbins or in this area, Robbins Federal has what's called a super saver account. And the interest rate varies yearly, but typically a standard savings account is less than 1%. But the high yield savings on last year, I think it was almost 3%. And this year it's a little bit, it's at about 2%. So that's something you may want to consider going to your banks. They usually have some type of high yield savings accounts. And what I found is that the credit union accounts seem to be a little bit higher of a return rate. And also there's one in the chat that is mentioned, Synchrony Bank. Synchrony Bank has a high yield savings account. So check out high yield savings accounts.
Yes, thank you for that.
And also a recommendation for comparing interest rates. It's in the chat if you want to take a look, bankrate.com. Bankrate.com is a recommendation for comparing interest rates.
And thank you, Jessica, for that. And yeah, I do see Bankrate all the time when I'm looking at different type of money activities, because they always come up. Thank you. I'm enjoying everybody with the group chat. It's so wonderful that we can share this type of information.
If there are not any more questions, we would like to thank everyone for joining us at our first Financial Fortitude event, Building a Financial House. We would like to thank Soror Carol Emmanuel for an awesome presentation. Thank you, Soror Emmanuel.
I appreciate everyone's contributions. This has been a great talk.
And we thank everyone for the questions. We thank you for your feedback. We thank you for giving us and for this space to be able to share resources. Everyone, whether you presented or you were a member of our organization or from the community, everyone chimed in, and we really appreciate that. We invite you to follow the WRAC page, the Warner Robins Alumni Chapter for Facebook, Instagram pages. We have our next Financial Fortitude event. It is scheduled for Saturday, November 21st at 1 p.m. And that event will be on the process of buying a home. And there we will learn the ins and outs and how to position ourselves when it's time to buy a home. If you will, we ask that you follow us and join us for that event as well. Thank you so much for your participation on today.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Appreciate you all attending.